Hello, everybody. We are coming live from the Pilatus Owners and Pilots Association 2021. And with me today, I have our VP Training, Randy Brooks from here at our headquarters, but he's there at the event, and he's also with Becky Lorber as well, the Director of Marketing for POPA. So, Randy, why don't I hand it over to you to talk about what's going on there?
Well, thank you, BJ, and welcome everybody to Westminster, Colorado, or as I like to call it, since I'm a graduate of the University of Colorado, the gateway to Boulder, Colorado. We're here at the Westminster Westin. And Becky, why don't you tell us a little bit about POPA, the organization, first, and then we're going to talk about why this is sort of a significant year for this organization.
Absolutely, happy to. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Pilatus Owners event. We have been fortunate enough to have this be our 25th year celebrating our organization. Our association started in 1996 with a small group of Pilatus owners who wanted to get together to figure out how they could work together to utilize their airplanes, make their aircraft more productive for them, and keep in mind the importance of safety and education and training as they continued along their ownership path. Over the years, that original group of 20 aircraft owners, which represented about 10% of the airplanes at that time that had been built worldwide by Pilatus, has now grown to where POPA represents over 600 airplanes of the 2,000 roughly that Pilatus has built today. Our main focuses with the association are on safety and education, and our cornerstone event that we hold each year is this convention. We travel around the country, primarily here in the US, and hold it at locations that are convenient for a majority of our owners. Now, we do have owners from around the world, and on occasion we will have them fly in from Europe, fly up from South America. We've had a couple of our Australian owners participate with us. But this year the group is a broad selection of owners. We have not only our PC-12 owners here, but some of our new PC-24 owners. And we don't have as many international guests this year with us due to obvious reasons, but we're very fortunate to have one of the largest groups we've had in recent history, dating back probably about 10 years. We're close to about 300 people with us this year.
Well, boy, if that doesn't sound like a marketing director, I don't know who does. That was very, very well said, very well spoken, Rebecca. I'm going to offer a kind of congratulations as well as a poke for one of the reasons that Pilatus Owners and Pilots Association has been so successful, and that's the executive director, Laura Mason, who has been in place as the executive director for 25 years. And when I tried to get her on camera, she said, that sounds like a job for Becky. And so that's why Rebecca is here with me. And so what I'd like to talk about today, Rebecca, we see that the subject that I will be speaking to in a little over an hour, upset prevention and recovery training, has kind of woven its way through the meetings here this year. And what we'll do is I'm just going to talk to you about some of the presenters that we've had here. I'd like you to explain for the audience their role within POPA, the subject that they were addressing, and then I'll comment on some of the things that they touched on during their presentations that talked about loss of control in flight and upset prevention and recovery training. And so we'll start with the current president, who's outgoing this year, John Zimmerman. So tell us about John.
Yes, John Zimmerman has been a pilot for probably 20 years now. He's been a Pilatus owner for, I would say, almost 15 of those years. It's actually an aircraft that is part of a family business. And while he is a very active pilot, as are his brother and his father, and they share responsibility for flying the airplane for their various needs, they really have spearheaded under John's watch and leadership as our president the last 2 years, a real focused return interest in maintaining the training level and pushing and encouraging our members to repeatedly train and go and pick up some different training experiences than their standard recurrent training. We overall want to encourage our members not just to go in and do their recurrent training, check that box once a year. We want to encourage people to participate in training like you provide. We want them to perhaps go to a sim training event, maybe do a different type rating or a different aircraft rating, and really change up how they're training so that if nothing else, they're also just approaching something from a different perspective.
Right. He was inviting people to do new training, to challenge themselves, and I liked him right off the bat because when he had a list of training, like Becky just said, at the bottom there was upset prevention and recovery training.
Absolutely.
And so we thought that that was significant. Before I go on to the next presenter, I'm going to talk about the fact that this is the second event that I've been to for POPA. The first one was at 2016.
Mm-hmm.
It was at Quebec City in Canada. It was a lovely venue, lovely event, but we've got an additional airplane now in
Yes.
POPA than we had at that time. The PC-24 has joined the PC-12 in the ranks of Pilatus aircraft and is part of POPA now. And the next gentleman that we're going to talk about actually has a PC-12 and he has a PC-24 on order. He's already done a little bit of flying in it, and that is Brent McCasland. Tell us a little bit about Brent.
Brent is also, as you just mentioned, a PC-12 owner. He has been a member of our board for the last 6 years, had an airplane, PC-12 for about 10 years now, and as his business that he uses the aircraft in has grown and changed, he has found the need to step up to a larger airplane that has some different capabilities and give him some more opportunities to continue to grow his business. So he has recently decided to move up to a PC-24, as you mentioned. He just completed his initial training in the 24 and will be taking delivery of the airplane very soon.
So Brent's going to be taking over from John at the conclusion of the festivities here, but he's already been up to thank John, and he has taken to heart John's advice because he actually has done some upset prevention and recovery training with Aviation Performance Solutions at our location in Arlington, Texas. And I just narrowly missed Brent because I have relocated to our headquarters in Mesa, Arizona. And so we had talked on the phone prior to the convention. He kind of helped to groom some of the remarks that I will have here later today. But it was nice to meet him in person. And last night during our dinner together, we got a chance to sit together and talk. And he assured me that he's interested in flying in our Cy Marchetti S211 in the future because that's going to be very appropriate for his PT-20, the Pilatus PC-24. And it has a wing that is very much like the 24 in that it's a swept leading edge and straight trailing edge. And I think it will emulate that for the PC-24 pilots very, very well in the future and gives us that high altitude capability. And we're just now getting to our keynote speaker, who was a marvelous speaker and a wonderful human being, and that is 3-star Admiral Mike McCabe. Tell us about Admiral McCabe.
We're very fortunate to have Mike Wizard McCabe join us this year as our keynote speaker. His background is exceedingly on topic for what we want our members to hear and not only be inspired in their flying and how they just approach their everyday lives, but to really also benefit from the insights and experience that he had in his very unique roles during his career. As you mentioned, being a retired admiral now, he has seen many aircraft in a very unique operational capability that the average Pilatus owner would not necessarily get to experience, but he talked for quite a while during his comments yesterday during our keynote about how to segue and apply those experiences that he had to an owner who flies a PC-12 or a PC-24. So his background also included being the president of a large charter airline. And so he could also relate not only from his military experience, but to something that's a little more common to what our aircraft owners experience on an ongoing basis as they use their aircraft.
And so now I'm going to share some of the personal experiences that I had with Mike. I met him as we were setting up the booth behind us here, as a gentleman that was staring at the booth, looking it over, and I asked if I could help him, and he said, what is this? And I explained the whole concept of upset prevention and recovery training, which, being a military aviator, he wasn't familiar with, but he was very glad, and he immediately began to relate a story that he used in his presentation, which is, we don't think of military aviators having a loss of control in flight problem, but when they introduced the F-14, they were having problems with spins that were unrecoverable. And the way that they dealt with that is very, very familiar to those of us at APS. They used a military training aircraft, in this case the T-2, to provide F-14 pilots with the training, awareness, and education. And as he explained, they went into a lot greater detail on the academics than they had done in initial F-14 training, and that is very much like the surrogate role that APS uses its Marchetti S211N, the extra 300LN, to provide transferable training to pilots. But although Becky touched on some of the highlights of Admiral McCabe's career, the things that I like the most about him right away is that he got a MiG in Vietnam. So he was a fighter pilot, the real deal. And he did that before attending Top Gun, although he was under the tutelage, the mentoring of some of the early Top Gun graduates on his Vietnam deployment. He later attended Top Gun, became an instructor, and became the executive officer of Top Gun. He was actually the executive officer during the time of the filming of Top Gun, so he got in on all of those events, but then went on to command the Third Fleet and do a lot of other things. And just so we had a common background in history, since we both had fathers that were military pilots, and so we had a great time talking. All right, so let's talk about today's speaker, gentleman that I had seen speak at Oshkosh a few years ago, and I had been looking forward to meeting to him, and that is Richard McSpadden. He was the head of the AOP Air Safety Foundation. You want to tell us about Richard and what he was talking to us about here?
Well, as you mentioned, he also was really reinforcing that cultivating safety mindset and thinking forward of how do we approach not only every flight that we take as an opportunity to learn, but also to think about where are some other opportunities for us to do some training that then can help us transfer skills back into the airplane and our more routine, regular mission. So he spoke for, again, he's a long-term background in aviation, and he spoke for quite a while this morning, told some great stories, but really re-emphasized the importance of a safety mindset, thinking through various scenarios that you don't want to fail, and you may have unexpected things occur. How best can you?
And I had the opportunity to talk to here at booth a little bit for his presentation, to explain to him what we do at APS. His history and background is rather interesting too. He flew red, white, and blue airplanes, as we like to say, for the U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds. We compared timing, and it was during a period between my involvement in the airshow business, so we hadn't met while he was in that official capacity, but we also shared one of our personal passions, which is airplane camping. He has a Piper Super Cub. We have a 1958 tail dragger Cessna 175, and so we had that in common and had a nice talk, and we've invited him to come out and visit us at APS and show him how we can help the AOPA Air Safety Foundation to reduce what they know is the #1 cause of fatalities in general aviation, being loss of control in flight. Then we had some folks just talking about automation, and there's some things that I'm going to touch on there. But going back to Richard McSpadden, where he touched on some of the comments that I'll be making in my presentation, is he talked about how the brain works differently in different ways. When we're using our cognitive brain, versus when we are reacting to things. And that's certainly something that has to be considered in the training that we do for pilots to make them resilient in the face of an upset. And I guess that leaves us with me. I have the presentation, the coveted presentation after lunch on the last day. All speakers look forward to.
Well, we put you there specifically because we knew that you would be able to introduce the crowd after lunch.
And that was your way of making sure that people
Yes.
didn't leave early, so
Absolutely.
that they were going to make sure. But I'm going to really enjoy some of what we have just talked about touching back to things that everybody has said. BJ knows that in meetings I like to be the last one to speak because then I can sound like I'm smart as I riff on everybody else. And I'm merely doing that here at the convention by borrowing the other thoughts that have gone before me. But I'll be explaining to the Pilatus owners a lot of recent information for many of them about what upsets are, about why the training is not the training that is required licensing is sort of insufficient. Looking at some statistics of that, BJ is the chair. It's the tell us, BJ, what's your role within the National Business Aviation Association Safety Committee these days?
Yeah, I'm the vice chairman of the MBAA Safety Committee, so I get to be under Jeff Wofford's leadership for another year, and then I get to take the chairman position for 2 years, so I'm excited about that.
And BJ's role with the MBAA Safety Committee began with the control working has now passed, but he introduced that. And so we're actually presenting some of the statistics that NBAA had put together. And then we did an analysis of accidents within the Pilatus PC-12 community that we'll be sharing that are actually somewhat startling because of the 83 accidents that we evaluated. One of them, the fatal accidents that were to loss of control in flight. And what that meant was that 81% of the fatal accident events in Pilatus PC-12s is due to loss of control in flight. So we think that although the community here is aware of that, this is rather stark, and I present that to hopefully gain attention for what I'm going to talk about after, which are deficiencies existing, and then training need to provide people that we provide to people at Aviation Performance Solutions, APS, to try and mitigate that threat. And then this afternoon we get to go out to the airport and see some airplanes fly. So before I got to jump on a jet and fly home. So BJ, do you have any questions before we go?
I don't think so. The connection on your side is getting a little weak, so I think we got the audio the entire time. Your video locked up a few times, but that's why I came in to be moving around so people know we're still here. So no, I think it turned out great. Well, Randy, why don't you just tell us a little bit about what happens if a Pilatus pilot comes to, let's say, our Arizona headquarters, and the integrated training approach we do. For example, how would we help Pilatus pilots overcome this threat that is plaguing that fleet?
Sure, and it's one of the things that I'll be sharing with them today. First of all, we're going to begin with academics that are going to explain to pilots a lot of things that occur after their normal training beyond the critical angle of attack that they might not have previously seen. And then we're going to get right to it and go out to an airplane, whether it's the X-3 or the Saya Marchetti S211, and begin to use the aircraft as.
All right, Randy, we lost you guys, so I'm just going to finish that off. So all those pilots out there, unfortunately, the connection at the POPA event here dropped on us. So anybody interested in upset prevention recovery training, we have class-specific training specifically for Pilatus operators of single-engine turboprop airplanes. In fact, we are the military provider of upset training in Dothan, Alabama on the single-engine turboprop Grobe 120 TP. So come on out to Arizona. If you want to go to Dothan, Alabama, you can do that. We'll take good care of you. But Randy's response is correct. It's really an integrated approach to training that is really critical. So academic training, preparatory work you can do before you arrive. when you get here, instructor-led training on aircraft piston, single engine training, which is directly transferable to the Pilatus. And then also what we're going to be doing is getting into the simulator. You do have the option of doing some jet upset training as well. And a really cool feature this year is we have VR training, so we can actually get you right into the Pilatus cockpit to wrap things up at the end. So we're really excited about that. So with that, please if you have an opportunity, go ahead and go to our website at apstraining.com. Come visit us. It's an open invitation. Just let us know, drop in. We'll take you around for a tour. And certainly if you're interested in training, just reach out to our team. So with that, I do see that they're unable to get back on. So we're just going to go ahead and wrap up the live stream here. But it's really been wonderful coming from POPA 21. It's just a great event that is really focused on air safety. And that's really what it's all about. So a great group of people, great group of members, fantastic workhorse airplane, and of course with the PC-24 coming out, just a really exciting time for Pilatus. So with that, take care. We thanks Randy and Becca, who unfortunately got disconnected, but we'll definitely get another opportunity to speak to a POPA and the Pilatus Pilot Association here someday real soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.